Well, here it is. Finally. The 4th edition top 20 worst SpongeBob episodes, and this is the fan edition. All you guys voted, I tallied up the votes, and got a total of 109 votes. Now, during this video, I'm gonna say how many, votes each episode got, and if there were, multiple episodes that were tied, let's say there were 5 episodes, and each of them had 5 votes. With how I ordered those, that was based on my opinion on those episodes, okay? Because, let's be honest, if this whole list was up to me and I didn't, have you guys do the picking, this would be completely different. Yeah, and I also want to throw this out. This is going to be the last edition of Worst SpongeBob episodes. I'm thinking of, reviewing, future episodes, new ones when they come out. And after I get done with these 2 parts, I'm going to have a separate video with the honorable, or in some cases, unhonorable mentions. Say how many votes they got and give my quick senses on it. And also, I want to throw this out there. Why I have not used and don't want to use any of the episodes that were done by Mobro Studios. Am I a suck-up? No. Well, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there were these 2 YouTubers, Aquastar Marine and Sparta Fan Mix, or Mix Fan, whatever it was. And they decided to do a collaboration top 15 worst SpongeBob episodes. It was good. I quite liked it. Although they got a shitload of flack for, people say they were copying Mobro Studios. I mean, they did use, episodes that he did, but, well, they accused them of copying it. It got so bad that they just disabled comments on the videos because they were sick of it. And quite frankly, I didn't want to deal with it, so I'm like, you know what, let's do episodes that he didn't do. Stuff that, I would like to give a thrashing. And plus, I do agree with what he said about those episodes. So, and plus, it's been said over and over again about those particular episodes. So, who am I to, put in my similar opinion of them? Now, with that being said, let's get on to the top 20 worst SpongeBob episodes, fan edition. Enjoy. If I could just sum this episode up as quick as possible, it's like the sequel to Waiting. It's just one event repeated over and over again, probably to save money on animation, that goes nowhere and is very boring, and you'll probably turn the TV off before you're halfway through the thing. So, it's picture day at Mrs. Puff's boating school. I would complain that this doesn't make any sense because, the only day there would be picture day at boating school is if they're all getting their license, but I guess this is to, connect with all the kiddies that are watching it, so I'll let it off at that. What I won't let this episode off at is just how bad the humor is and just how cliche everything is. I mean, you can see things coming from about 10 miles. So, yeah, it's picture day. SpongeBob's trying to look all neat and perfect. He's using a crayon to whiten his teeth. He's cleaning himself. He's painting stripes on his socks. And then he walks outside, and then a leaf gets stuck to him, and he peels it off, and this sticky green stuff comes off. And then he goes back in, changes, does the whole thing over again. And then he gets an umbrella, and then the garbage truck grabs him and puts him in the garbage, and then brings him out, and then he opens up the umbrella, and out comes garbage. Ew. That's just disgusting. So then SpongeBob, repeats the animation again, and then he's downtown Bikini Bottom, and the teenagers have been let out of school, and they're throwing water balloons full of ketchup and even squirting ketchup. What? 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 Moving on. SpongeBob avoids the little pipsqueaks ketchup shit, and then when he thinks he's in the clear, some old dumbass squirts ketchup at him. Missed again. You know, the stereotype that old people are stupid or confused is not funny. It's not funny. So then he does the same thing over again, and then puts on Sponge Glass, which is like this pink stuff. So then, SpongeBob, he's almost there, but the gloss makes him so shiny that it somehow shines in the eyes of a truck driver who's driving a tanker truck. The tanker truck gets destroyed, and water splashes on SpongeBob, washing off the gloss. Ugh. Just why? And then more shenanigans. Then a truck full of stamps collides, and then a truck full of oatmeal and glue, and it all lands on SpongeBob. Wah, wah, wah! You know, how much time has SpongeBob just wasted doing all this? I mean, at this point, he's gotta be late for school or something. So he's showering, and then Patrick breaks in and says, and does stupid shit. He eats jelly out of a jar, and then SpongeBob's like, "You could protect me. I'll go in this jar." And then Patrick runs him to Mrs. Puff's boating school. But of course, this is new SpongeBob, so of course we need Patrick acting like a retard. He thinks SpongeBob is still jelly and puts him on a peanut butter taco. Okay, who eats peanut butter tacos? Where the fuck did that come from? Oh yeah, that's right. Right, convenience, because the writers have no idea how to fucking write. How silly of me! So then SpongeBob is covered in peanut butter and taco shell, and then Mrs. Puff, grabs him and, wants him to take the picture, and the photographer washes him off, and SpongeBob is still crying. Remember that time in grade school when it's picture day and you're waiting in line, or you're done and you're waiting for the rest of your friends to get their pictures taken, but there's this one little douchebag that won't stop crying? That's how this is. So then the photographer thinks SpongeBob should be in fancy dress, and then he puts a giant pair of teeth in, and there's a picture. Bam! Like I said, the sequel to Waiting. This episode seems to not know what normal means. Now, SpongeBob's doing his regular shit, and Squidward is annoyed, of course. And Squidward tells SpongeBob that he should be normal. Now, let's stop right there. Normal, the definition of normal varies from person to person. Normal can mean one thing for someone, while normal means something for someone else. Like, let's say normal for you is, driving to school every day, going to class, getting A's, having a kind and loving family, eating dinner, and, breakfast and lunch beforehand, and going to bed at 10 o'clock. That's normal for you. Whereas normal for, let's say, Mordecai and Rigby is slacking off at work, being yelled at by Benson, having some supernatural thing happen, and then resolving it, probably with the power from Skips, or figuring it out themselves, and impressing Benson at the end. That would be normal for them. This episode's definition of normal is being really bland, and always smiling, and just being as generic as possible. So, Squidward hands SpongeBob this videotape, lessons for beginners on being normal, and you can't have any craters, SpongeBob's holes, or freckles. You gotta be as smooth as possible. You have to have a generic rectangular house that a 5-year-old would be better at drawing. And, well, also, Another thing about being normal, according to this stupid-ass tape, is working on a computer all day. So yeah, instead of flipping patties, SpongeBob's using a computer to do it. Although for the time being, they, are still edible burgers. Although that backfires. And then eventually, SpongeBob becomes all smooth and just creepy. Ugh. And, well, when he's making the patties, well, they're no longer actual burgers. They're just piles of colored paper. And, well, Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob to just get the fuck out until he can straighten out. And then, Patrick wants to play with SpongeBob, but SpongeBob wants to do boring things. Let's go window shopping or defragment my hard drive. Seriously, that's how he delivers the lines. And then he goes to Squidward's house. Squidward actually lets him in. And, well, Squidward is annoyed at how normal SpongeBob is. And SpongeBob's like, you should be normal. Your nose is so flabby. Look at your face. And you don't wear pants. And then SpongeBob's like, you know what, I'm sick of being normal. Although he's still talking like this. So he gets lessons from Patrick, and well, they do stuff like jellyfishing, go on a long slip and slide in their underwear, and jump off a tow truck, and lick sand, talk backwards when they're on their hands. Standing on their hands, handstands, yeah, that's what it's called. And, well, eventually, it seems that SpongeBob's about to transform back, and, well, he stays normal, and then Squidward comes over, and he's apparently normal, and major cop-out, SpongeBob is so scared by how normal Squidward looks that he goes back to how he originally was. What kind of episode was this? This is such a confusing episode, like, the writers didn't know what direction to go, and they chose such stupid twists, and this episode has no idea what it means to be normal. Normal is not being generic. Normal is how you see normal. Not this. Not this. This episode is like the sequel to Pat No Pay with a little bit of New Student Starfish mixed into it. So what happens? Well, Patrick is waiting outside of SpongeBob's door, although SpongeBob has to go to work, but Patrick wants to play. Patrick wanting to play, but SpongeBob has to go, somewhere else, place that he's always at. Yeah, like New Student Starfish. And he despises the Krusty Krab hat. Oh, you're evil. Ugh. I mean, he's about to ask Squidward, but Squidward has a hat on. And, well, Patrick's like, I'll get a job and wear a hat, in the most retarded threat ever. Then we cut back to the Krusty Krab, where Mr. Krabs sees some tourists, and of course he's money hungry and jizzing his pants at just the thought of it. And, well, Mr. Krabs is like, okay, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get them in? So he finds Patrick and decides to have him hold a sign outside directing to the Krusty Krab, and if Patrick succeeds, then he gets a hat. Yeah, Patrick, first time he's holding the sign, he's holding it upside down and points it to the chum bucket, although eventually he does get the hat after trial and error, but when the hat is put on him, he keeps falling forward. Now, Patrick has worn a Krusty Krab hat before. Hell, in Bummer Vacation, he wore it basically 99% of the episode. 99.9% actually. And now he's suddenly falling down. The reason because he says he's nervous. Blow me. And, well, apparently him falling flat on his face attracts customers. People do the stupidest shit to get attention, but really, who's gonna be attracted to something like that? Even by SpongeBob standards, new SpongeBob standards, it makes no sense. I don't care if this is a kid's show. Kids are probably wondering, how does that work? And, well, he basically becomes an act until people start to get bored of Patrick falling over. So Mr. Krabs decides to add stuff that, well, Patrick falls on. Like, he falls down high in the face. And, well, it gets to the point where Patrick's face is jacked up, and SpongeBob does something about it. Everything gets resolved, and, well, in the end, SpongeBob lets Patrick wear his hat. And he keeps falling down. What thought went into this episode? None. I mean, Casey Alexander and Zeus Service did write this episode. Lazy bums, worst scum. Relax. Alright, what's next? Honestly, this episode has some potential of being good, but, failed. Failed because of cheapskate drives you to suicide crabs. So, what happens? Well, Pearl gets a barnacle on her face, and we know that, well, barnacles in, well, SpongeBob's universe is basically the equivalent of zits. And, well, there's a dance coming up, and Pearl has to somehow get it off. She uses soap. Well, SpongeBob tries to help her with it after Mr. Krabs told him to. And, well, he tries to pry it off, but cannot. Yeesh, that thing is really on. So then Pearl decides to wash her face with soap, but more appear. And for some strange reason, SpongeBob can't stop smelling the soap. He says, "It smells so good." And, well, Pearl tells him that just to go get some more soap from their basement, which is also some sort of medieval dungeon. And, well, Mr. Krabs is down there, and, well, he has this machine that turns Krabby Patties into bars of soap. Ew! Gross! Really? And I'm sure that machine costs more than just buying a bar of soap off the shelf at a store. And, well, Pearl's pissed when she finds out because, well, essentially she's been rubbing grease all over her face, hence why there's more barnacles. If you're not disgusted at this point, I envy you. And, well, SpongeBob is trying to think of what else to do for Pearl, so she does, to cover up all the barnacles for the dance, and he comes up with the idea to put diamonds on her face. And, ugh, makes you want to scrape that stuff off even more. And they think Pearl looks so coral. They don't use coral in it, but, SpongeBob term. And, well, Pearl goes to the dance, and Mr. Krabs flips out that, well, Pearl is using his jewels on her. Mr. Krabs, thanks for ruining this episode. Just being a cheapskate and making disgusting soap. Seriously, that part alone is enough to bring down an episode. Where do I begin? So, this guy comes over to Patrick's house, telling him that, well, he is now some sort of ruler because his family chain, ancestry, whatever you want to call it, says that he's some sort of king. He's royalty because of how his bloodline is. Really? Even after seeing Patrick's parents, you wouldn't think that. And, well, Patrick is granted as a king, and SpongeBob decides to be his squire. And then everything goes down from there. Patrick starts, going by his own rules. He doesn't have to pay for those Krabby Patties. He can take whatever he wants. He will even move Squidward's house somewhere else so he can build an amusement park or a Ferris wheel. Something incredibly stupid. And just Patrick's a monster in this episode. So annoying. Although this isn't the most annoying he's been. We'll get to that later. And also, I've discussed this in the past, and it's been discussed in many other videos from other people. Yeah, so Patrick eventually scares SpongeBob off. He's like, I don't want to deal with him. You're being a jerk. And then, well, Patrick passes a mirror and his reflection says, knock, knock. Who's there? You. And it's basically looks like Bizarro Patrick. I don't know why Bizarro comes in my head, but he looks like some rocky looking monster of Patrick, and the plugs everything comes together on Patrick that, well, he's essentially become a monster. And he's scared of it, runs outside, and, well, the guy that gave him the crown is there, but, well, he had come to take the crown back because, really, it's Gary that deserves the crown. Okay, where did that come from? Okay, taking the crown away from Patrick is fine, but where'd that come from? I don't know. That's the sort of shit that insults a kid's intelligence. Honest to God, fuck Patrick. That's the bottom line. Fuck Patrick. This special came out after 3rd edition came out, so, well, I couldn't give it a thrashing then, but luckily enough people voted for it that it got on this list. So, it came from Lagoon. Well, it's like the world's one of the worst. It came from the Black Lagoon parodies, mixed with ripping off Attack of the Twonkies from Jimmy Neutron, and the icing on the cake, a little bit of Fungus Among Us. So, how does this special start out? A minute of filler. Well, at least they cut the useless padded out filler in half from the last special. That was SpongeBob, You're Fired. But, well, SpongeBob and Patrick, they come across these goo bubbles, these purple goo bubbles that are sticky and squishy, and they bounce around like those ball things that you, like, kind of like pogo sticks, yeah. And just end up terrorizing a bunch of beachgoers. And we see Plankton trying to sell stupid-ass chum. And Squidward's there, and of course, they gotta shit on Squidward. And Squidward tells him to stop fucking around. Then Sandy comes out of Goo Lagoon and says that they're dangerous! They're toxic, they're not good. And spoilers, we don't see how they're toxic at all. Or how they're dangerous. The only threat they do is making stuff messy. So, yeah. Plankton overhears all this and decides to, go to the bottom of Goo Lagoon, where apparently a volcano full of goo was at the bottom of Goo Lagoon, and there's a crack in it, and it's releasing all the bubbles. Okay, now we're starting to rip off Pacific Rim here, except instead of kaiju, we've got goo bubbles. Great job, guys. Fuckers. So, anyway, yeah. Yeah, so Plankton gets a big bubble to the surface, Sandy tests it out, and, well, it's incredibly unstable, which is not shown. And, well, SpongeBob discovers that you can clean the stuff off your hands with bubble soap. Remember that later. So yeah, it's floating towards Bikini Bottom, and there's a lot of terrible jokes. There's a terrible bathroom joke where Patrick is, like, when they're running, Patrick decides to use the can, the bubble picks up the bathroom, and Patrick punches the door and yells that there's no toilet paper! Ew. And when the giant bubble gets to Bikini Bottom, it's dripping goo onto everyone, and it's just disgusting. And at one point, a guy comes out of a garbage can covered in garbage. Ew. Yeah. And then eventually Plankton gets it and is going to use it to try to get the Krabby Patty formula. And, well, once he gets there, he threatens Krabs that if he doesn't give him the formula, he'll pop the bubble, and everyone in Bikini Bottom tells him to do so. And, well, Plankton pops it anyway. But not before SpongeBob, tries to make a Hulk Bubble Buddy. But, well, Patrick screws up by, well, having by the thing stepping on his head and popping, but then bringing it up and then down, and that part was a waste. So yeah, the bubble pops, and, well, Plankton thinks he's gotten away when really the formula he got has a stick of dynamite which blows up, and at the end it rips off Fungus Among Us instead of Gary having to eat mold off of people. SpongeBob's giant bubble thing is cleaning people, and Mr. Krabs is getting money out of it. Writers of SpongeBob, stop doing these specials. Less and less people are watching them, and you suck so much at them. So knock it off, okay? Just knock it off. Go back to school and learn how to write. This episode is so mean-spirited, so cruel, and so disgusting. So, what happens? Well, SpongeBob, again, has to take his boating exam, his driving test, and Patrick tags along and he says that SpongeBob will pass, and of course he fails. So Patrick's like, I'm gonna try the test and see what I do. And despite the fact that Patrick was never in Mrs. Puff's class, except for, he was only in there for a day, but that was years ago, so he's probably not even registered anymore. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Patrick somehow passes the test, and then SpongeBob is not happy about that. Patrick takes SpongeBob to the DMV, where Patrick is the millionth person to get his driver's license that year, and he gets this hot rod boat, and he gloats about it in SpongeBob's face. If you had a boat, you could drive with me. And SpongeBob is getting so fucking pissed, just like the audience. And then SpongeBob is just sick of it, and when he tries to go to sleep, Patrick is doing stupid shit with it, trying to fix it. Yeah, you keep it down, there's people trying to sleep here. And just, wow, it's awful. And then SpongeBob's like, I'll just go to work, everything will be fine. And apparently there's a drive-thru open at the Krusty Krab now. Bad foreshadowing. And guess who the first customer is? Patrick. And basically, Patrick does so much gloating in SpongeBob's face that SpongeBob has become sick of it, like the audience, that he rips up Patrick's driver's license and throws it on the ground, and, well, Patrick is arrested for littering, but then when Patrick's at court, SpongeBob admits that he's the one who littered, so SpongeBob goes to jail, and then SpongeBob eventually gets out of jail, and Patrick says he doesn't have the boat anymore because as it was on E, probably for and he threw it out. This episode should have just been thrown out. This is so mean-spirited and is one of those episodes that just shows how much Patrick has become a douchebag. A fucking douchebag. my God. This is about as bad as yours, mine, and mine, and you probably all know my thoughts about that episode. This one is a Squidward torture porn, basically, and as bad as this is, there's one scene that I did like, but yeah, it's kind of like the Krusty Krab training video where, you know, it's a Mrs. Puff video on how to have boat smarts. It shows Squidward has boat smarts and SpongeBob without boat smarts. Squidward, you know, complies to all the rules, like wearing seatbelts, going the speed limit, adjusting mirrors before driving, and everything else. SpongeBob, of course, is the opposite. And SpongeBob's stupid-ass shit gets Squidward almost killed. Like, there's this one part where SpongeBob rear-ends Squidward, and, well, Squidward's seat goes flying out, and he can't unbuckle himself, and he gets crushed by these, like, steamroller things with spikes, somehow isn't killed, and, well, when SpongeBob is adjusting his mirrors while he's driving, he shines the light in Squidward's eyes, and then Squidward puts on sunglasses, and he smacks into the wall. This is the one part I like, where Squidward's head is on a crash test dummy, and it's showing stuff. The first time I saw it, I pissed myself laughing. Not really, but about to. But even that's not worth seeing, because, well, it just makes you pissed off. And at the end, SpongeBob basically destroys, you know, everything that Squidward and Mrs. Puff had. And he says, "Looks like you forgot your boat smarts, bye." You forgot your boat smarts, you little fucking idiot! Fuck you! Wow. There's nothing smart about this. Nothing. Yes, it's a pre-movie SpongeBob episode. Although, I will say this, I don't mind this episode. I kinda like it. Although it got enough votes to get on this list. And you're probably thinking, oh, he probably likes it because he's such a purist from pre-movie. No, I'm just not bothered by it. And you're probably like, oh, that's just because of what's been going on lately. No, this episode never bothered me. Ever. Even as a kid, it never bothered me. Before a SpongeBob movie was even thought of, before Season 2 was confirmed, this episode did not bother me. Ever. So, this is the first episode that introduces us to Gary, you know, SpongeBob's pet. And, well, SpongeBob is being such a great pet owner and, well, taking care of Gary and whatnot. When suddenly Patrick says that it's the jellyfish convention this weekend in, I don't know, Ass Bottom, someplace. But, well, SpongeBob didn't realize it was this weekend, and he has no one to take care of Gary. When suddenly Squidward knocks on the door, telling SpongeBob that he left his underwear on the lawn, and SpongeBob's like, I know. I can't snap. That he should let Squidward watch Gary, and Squidward's like, no. But when SpongeBob says that him and Patrick will be gone the whole weekend, Squidward says yes. And then SpongeBob and Patrick go on their trip, while Squidward is left alone with Gary. But Squidward does not take care of Gary. Instead, he just tans the entire weekend, leaving Gary to suffer. And then, come the day when SpongeBob and Patrick arrive, Squidward's like, geez, already? And then he looks into SpongeBob's house and sees a, well, weak-looking Gary, and Squidward's like, oh shit, I forgot to take care of Gary! Oh no! And then he comes in, and Gary is a mess, and he figures, you know what, let's feed him. And he tries to make Gary eat, but, well, nothing's happening, and, alright, how do I get rid of all this food? And SpongeBob comes through, and Squidward eats all that snail food. He's like, yeah, I just took care of Gary. Yeah, I'm just gonna go home. What a great guy. And then Gary comes and he's just looks terrible. SpongeBob flips out, you know, that makes sense. And Squidward feels guilty of neglecting Gary. And then the vet comes and says that, Gary should have be injected with some snail plasm. He doesn't do it because, well, he's too squeamish. Okay. I'm sure there's doctors that are squeamish, but still, he is a doctor and he's supposed to do it. So yeah, he tells SpongeBob that he should do it himself, and Squidward tries to get out of it, but, you know, SpongeBob's like, hey, come on, Squidward, I'm squeamish too. And, well, when Squidward's trying to, inject Gary with the plasms, SpongeBob's not sure, and, well, he keeps moving him around that, well, Squidward accidentally injects him with a bit of snail plasm, and Squidward tells him he'll be fine. And then, well, apparently all that Gary needed was water, and, well, Squidward's like, I'm just gonna go home, and he takes the needle with him. And then, while SpongeBob is getting Gary's food ready, he gets a weird craving for snail food. He starts meowing and getting slower, and eventually SpongeBob turns into a snail, and this is pretty funny. Something is happening to me, meow. And Squidward's like, I don't want to see another snail again, ever. And then there's a knock on the door, or a doorbell, I can't remember. And Squidward opens the door, and SpongeBob is a snail, and he freaks out. And, well, SpongeBob's trying to get into his house. Well, I mean, he is now an animal, and Squidward keeps boards up his door, then he boards up his window, but there's a hole in the wood, and SpongeBob gets through, and, well, chaos ensues. And Squidward's in his closet. This never would have happened if I had just fed the snail! And, well, chaos ensues to the point where Squidward's house is destroyed, and Squidward's nose has, well, the needle stuck to it. Uh-oh. And at the end, Gary the snail, SpongeBob the snail, and Squidward the snail are meowing in the night, with Patrick throwing a boot at Squidward. Meow, 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 meow. I don't get the hate for this episode, really. I mean, it's watchable. I mean, it's almost worth watching, although apparently there's a bunch of backlash against it, which I don't get. I mean, Squidward did get bitten in the ass, and it was deserving. He was supposed to take care of Gary, which he didn't. He just decided to fuck around and go tanning. So yeah, I do like this episode. Although, I will say this, to be fair, and not make myself look like a douchebag. Before the movie, when the writers, got it wrong, it's mostly because, well, they're still trying. It's not because they're not trying, it's just, well, maybe some concepts don't really work, and they're trying their best. Where how it is nowadays, it's because the writers are either talentless cunts, or they've gotten all their talent sucked out of them. That last one, I'm looking at you, Aaron Springer and Mr. Lawrence. So yeah, there you go. Now here is an episode that's worth thrashing. The Battle of Bikini Bottom. I don't know where to begin. Well, SpongeBob and Patrick are playing around, and then they find, these guys are doing a war reenactment called the Battle of Bikini Bottom, which is basically the American Revolution, except the British stood for washing your hands, while the Americans stood, don't ever wash your hands, and it's disgusting. And Patrick says that he does not wash his hands, brush his teeth, or anything, despite the fact that we've seen him do all that stuff. So, yeah, right off the bat, it doesn't even make any sense. And, well, SpongeBob's all about being clean. And, well, they part ways and, well, battle with cleanliness versus grossness, and the grossness is just disgusting. Like bad breath, disgusting teeth, unfiled nails, armpit hair that is alive, and pits are greasy and just makes you want to throw up. And at the end, well, SpongeBob, shoots soap bubbles at Patrick, which makes him squeaky clean. Like, even when he rubs himself, he squeaks. And SpongeBob gets a dumpster thrown at him, and he's covered in garbage, and I think there's garbage in his mouth, and I want to throw up. And the guys that were doing the reenactment learned that war reenactments are boring. They should go do football. That came out of nowhere. And SpongeBob really says something that, well, doesn't even make any sense, and that's the end of the episode. This is such a disgusting gross out. I wanted to put it on some of my other lists, but it had stiff competition. This just disgusting, and nothing makes sense. This gives a big old middle finger to continuity, basically. And just, it's awful. Just awful. So yeah, stay tuned for part 2, where I tackle numbers 10 through 1. Hope to see you then.